So hello everyone, morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are located in the globe. Before I'm going to start, let me wish each one of you. I hope that what we face globally with the pandemic is not hurting you too much, and then that your health is well for you and your family. With that said, let me start our webinar for today, which consists of both some slides that I want to talk about our solution and also show you live demo. So a bit about who we are, if you don't know already. We are Analytical Factor. Myself, Sharon Eliassi, a managing partner at Analytical Factor, part of Analytical Factor. This is my 6th year as part of the group. We are a special boutique Oracle partner that has to do with demand planning, demand forecasting. This is our expertise. Both Nadav Zivelin and myself are coming for many years working under the Oracle umbrella, both for Demantra, when it was still Demantra by itself, and then many other years as part of Oracle. Myself as a solution specialist, and Nadav as a product manager for the Oracle supply chain applications. We have a lot of experience when it comes to the domain of forecasting, both statistical forecasting as tuning the different statistical models, and more importantly, understanding the best practice when it comes to planning processes. One more thing I think that it's important to know about us is that we are also an Oracle partner for development of some of the Oracle application, like the one you're going to see today. But also, I think it's important to mention that we are developing today with Oracle and Trinamics the trade promotion cloud solution. With that said, let me also speak a bit about our partners. Trinamics, I just mentioned them. So Trinamics, if you are not aware of them, but I'm sure many of you already know about them, they are the Oracle partner when it comes to value chain planning in the cloud. They have been implemented the most implementations when it comes to the Oracle supply chain cloud solutions. Have a lot of expertise and many experts. And then I think that one thing that I can speak about them and speak about Analytical Factor as well, we partner together in order to bring the best solution and service to our customers. And this is speak about our partnership as well. We complement Trinamics, and Trinamics complement us, Analytical Factor, as far as our solutions. With that said, and that's the last slide before I'm going to jump into the solution itself. There we have 2 more webinars, upcoming webinars that I think you would like to know about. One would be our autonomous forecasting. So if you are using today Oracle Demand Management Cloud and you want to control better and optimize better your statistical forecasting, so that's something that you want to attend. We're going to speak about our cloud solution that enable you to take better control and optimization of your statistical forecasting by yourself internally without the need for external services. And the second one is, as I mentioned earlier, we are developing the cloud solution for the Demantra trade promotion. So if you are using today Demantra trade promotion, or you want to use trade promotion in the cloud, so I think that's an event that you want to attend. We're going to showcase our solution for anyone who wants to do trade promotion on top of Oracle Demand Management Cloud. With that said, let me jump into today's discussion, which is demand sensing. So let's start with the challenge, right? Good solution always come to resolve a challenge. So what the challenge that I want to speak today is the challenges or the gaps that we have when we do demand planning. So when we do demand planning, we usually try to resolve the or to mitigate the challenge between higher service level, but also reducing the cost. We want to give a better service level to our customers, but we don't want to increase the inventory levels, which usually that's the challenge. You want to increase service levels, and then that increases your inventory. So that's part of many other things that we do within demand planning, demand forecasting. And one important thing to understand about demand planning is that we usually do that for beyond our lag, beyond our lead time. So if I have a lead time of, as an example, of 8 weeks, I'm going to do my planning usually for week 9 onwards, and then I will want to do it as best as I can. So I'm going to have less surprising events that that I didn't predict well within the 8 weeks that I have out of control, because that's my lead time. So that's the challenge, and that challenge is within the demand planning is about how can I still react within the short time. And I'm sure that many of you faced that within the last 6 to 8 months within the challenges we face with the pandemic. So what's demand sensing, and then what's the difference between demand sensing and statistical forecasting? Demand sensing, to me at least, is when you need to react. Because if you do planning and you do proper planning, you do demand forecasting, demand planning like Oracle Demand Management Cloud and Demantra. But if things going wrong within the short horizon, the 8 weeks, that you have less control, it's out of your, it's within the lead time, then where demand sensing can become handy is where you want to take advantage of the short trend, the things that happened within the last few weeks that statistical models usually will take time to pick up. But you still have those knowledge. You have knowledge about shipments, you have knowledge about point of sale data, promotions, customer inventory, open orders, and so on. You have all that information, and then this is where demand sensing becomes handy. It's helping you to react better. One important thing to know about demand sensing, it's not coming to replace statistical forecasting, it's coming to augment. It's basically coming to improve the statistical forecasting that we do within our demand planning process. So it's a step, it's an optimization step, if you will, on top. And I really like that slide before we're going to jump into our demo, because for me, it's explain, the process. So if you look in the top, we have the historical demand, which is usually very detailed. And then I should say that in a general note, the more detailed it is, the better our statistical forecast is. But with that said, and working with customers for many years, we not usually have all the different aspects of our history within our statistical forecast, meaning that we're not always going to give visibility for price change. Many times we're not going to give all the information about promotions and other things into our statistical forecast process as part of our demand planning, and hence, as you can see, the statistical forecast predicts for us the future, but not in those details. And then if you look at the bottom, that's what sensing demand or demand sensing is doing. Demand sensing is all about how can we fine-tune our forecast for the short horizon? How can we optimize the plan that we already did, the inventory that we already have? How can we fine-tune that within the short horizon? Short horizon can be anything between 8 to 18 weeks. That's the demand sensing usually horizon to do planning about. With that said, let me jump into our demo, show you the demo, and then we're going to come for some closing slides. Okay, so our solution is a cloud-based SaaS solution. In order to log into the solution, all I need is a connectivity. So this is going to be the login. I just put the username and password credentials, and I'm in the system. So what do we see in the system? Well, one thing to mention is this is part of our overall solution suite. And as I mentioned earlier, we're going to have some webinars about the autonomous forecast, so stay tuned to that. Today, I'm just going to focus about the demand sensing. And as you can see, demand sensing on the screen consists of 3 building blocks: exceptions, reconciliations, and reports. We're going to go through all of them. So the first one, exceptions. So what are the exceptions? You have to keep in mind that when we're going to work in demand sensing, we're going to have to work only on those which are exceptional. Example for exception from a demand sensing perspective, if I'm doing forecasting in my Oracle Demand Management Cloud on a monthly or weekly time bucket, and I see that suddenly can be for the last 2 statistical forecast runs, the forecast is changed dramatically. It's more than 100 or 200% difference than the forecast that I used to get until 2 weeks ago. So there is suddenly a drastic change in the forecast for the next quarter or within the quarter. So that's exceptional. And I want to take a look into that as a planner and understand what was the root cause for that change, and then how can I mitigate that huge change in the demand. So they're going to be the exceptions, and that can be very open. So every company might going to have a bit different story about what is exceptional, and that is being supported within our solution. So all those exceptional items will get imported either from your Oracle Demand Management Cloud or from your Oracle Demantra into this demand sensing solution, right? So we're going to bring into here the combinations which are exceptional. In what cadence I'm going to speak about later, but let's think for the sake of the discussion today that every 2 weeks we're going to have a cycle that we're going to bring the exceptional items. Okay, so a bit about what do we see over here before I'm going to jump into a few use cases. So what we see in demand sensing is we see the information per different categories, right? So for the demo that I have today is for fast-moving CPG, food industry, and I have 4 different categories of foods that I chose to bring the exception based on. Now, if you have different type of aggregations that you want to slice the information based on, again, the system is dynamic. We can configure it around any category that you have within your solution. We're basically going to bring the information based on 2 levels of aggregation. One would be category and the other would subcategory, but then it can apply to any attribute that you have today within your item dimension. Then what the rest of the planning user interface consists of a table that is the list of combinations which are exceptional per the category. As if I'm going to move into the Mexican, for example, category, you see that the data swapped, and now I'm looking into the combinations within the category of Mexican. So I'm going to have the list of the categories, and then on the bottom, I'm going to be able to see the details of the horizon of the data per week time bucket. I have a week demo. I'm going to speak about time bucket in a second. So I'm going to be able to see the data, right? So let me go back into the Asian food, and then more things that are important to know about the solution. So if I'm looking into the table, what do we see over here is we see the information of the item that we brought the combination for in the organization. Again, those can be applied into any levels within your item or location combinations within Oracle Demand Management Cloud. And then before I'm going to jump and explain more about demand and forecast, pay attention over here that I have some grid background. That is my sensing period, right? Because in the end of the day, when we do demand sensing, we have the sensing period. It can be 8, 10, 13, or 18 weeks, depends on your business. So I just zoomed in on the graph in order to show you the sensing period I'm focusing on. And it's also mentioned over here for the sake of the planner that the sensing period that the system currently is configured on and that the exceptions were integrated to the system based on is, you see, from 5/4/20 to 9/21/20. Right, so that's the horizon and that's the sensing period. Now, why did I mention that? If I go back into my table, so I have demand. The demand that I see over here is going to be the sum demand within my sensing period. Same goes for the forecast. Forecast can be either statistical or final forecast. In today's demo, that is my statistical forecast that was imported into the solution. Then I have the expected demand. What is expected demand? Because I'm going to mention that many times in the next few minutes. Expected demand is, if you will, would be the forecast that is getting generated within demand sensing based on many different aspects that or information that we're going to bring into the solution, right? So expected demand will be the forecast that is generated within the solution based on the demand and the forecast that we have for that combination. And we can already see that there is a big gap between the forecast, the statistical forecast for the sensing horizon that came from Oracle Demand Management Cloud to the one that we have over here. Open orders. That's an attribute that it's a possibility to load, not a must. So I do have information over here that for the sensing period, we have, this is the sum of all the open orders we have. Point of sale data. We don't have any point of sale data for that combination. We're going to see how it's become handy later. Adjusted forecast will be the override that I might choose to do as a planner for this sensing period within the tool based on all the information we have. And I'm going to show that in the demo today. And then if I will choose to do adjusted forecast, meaning overriding the statistical forecast I came with, that is what we're going to, in the end of the day, integrate it back into our demand planning. Because, and another important thing to keep in mind is that demand sensing, as I said earlier, is augmenting your demand planning. So we're going to come here to do adjustments either in real time or as part of our planning process. And those adjustments that we're going to do here, and we're going to be able to do them better because of all the information, we're going to drive back into our monthly S&OP process that happens within our planning solution. Forecast gap is just an easy indication about the gap between the statistical forecast and the expected demand. The bigger the gap is, the more, I would say, attention the planner should give into the combination. Promotion is just an indication, do I have promotion per that combination, yes or no? We're going to see in one of the examples how we do have promotions and how we visualize them within the graph. Reconciliation or reconcile. That means that if the combination was automatically reconciled by the system. I'm going to speak about that as well. Exclude and include, it means that if I'm going to work on a combination, I have the option to then choose to exclude that. What that will do is if I'm going to put the filter that comes by the default, show excluded no, it means that once I'm going to work on a combination and I'm going to choose to do that as an exclude, it's going to disappear from the screen. It's still going to be available, but it's going to disappear on the screen. So what's the motivation? The overall essence that this is based on that we also developed the solution is that we want to minimize the time the planners need to spend per combination. So one way to do it is through the reconciliation, that some things will be done automatically. Another one is if I'm coming into the solution, I looked at the combination, I chose an action like to do an adjusted forecast, and I'm done with that combination, I don't want to see that until my next planning cycle. And therefore, I'm going to be able to exclude it, and then I'm going to be able to focus only on things that matter. And then we have the status. And so on status, we have three statuses. One would be integrated. It means that this combination was just imported into my solution from Oracle Demand Management Cloud or Demantra as part of the weekly or bi-weekly process. And then the yellow as we have over here is unsynced. It means that I made an adjustment. You see the adjustment over here is 0, simple. And that adjustment didn't pass back still yet to my demand planning solution. And then blue that I don't have over here will indicate that it passed into the other solution. So I have the ability also to understand what's the status of my changes. And I'm going to mention more than that. If I want in real time to do changes over here and push them and not waiting into the weekly process, want to push them back into my demand planning right now, I have the ability to do so as well as a planner. So that's a bit about the table. Let me jump into a few use cases so we're going to be able to understand better how I'm working with demand sensing in practice. Okay. So the first combination I'm looking at, and I'm already focused on that, would be a combination where we see the item is chicken egg rolls at the organization of retail. That's their aggregation of all the small retailers. And then, so I zoomed a bit about the information. So as you can see, we can bring the horizon of as many years of history that we want. Usually we will want to bring as a planners of 2 years of history in order to see the seasonality, and we choose to bring also the horizon of the next 6 to 12 months into the future in order to understand the context of that combination. But then when we want to do the planning, we also have the ability, and I think it makes better sense as a planner, we have the ability to zoom in, as I did over here. So let's look at that combination to begin with. So, and another, I think that is usable thing is I can highlight each of those items on the graph, and then I can focus on that easily. So that would be my demand. Let me show you a bit more history from that demand. That would be my forecast, and that's the expected demand. Now you see that the expected demand is very different than the forecast. And why is that? The expected demand, and I'm going to speak in detail more about the algorithm, but the algorithm we have generating the expected demand took into consideration the open orders that we have over here. Now you see that the expected demand is somewhat following the open orders, but with some about 15% lower than what the open orders are. So it's respecting the open orders in order to generate the expected demand forecast, but is not 100% following it. And the reason is, as part of the solution, we have the capability to load historical open orders and analyze them in order to understand the true correlation between open orders on the short horizon and the fulfillment. And the analysis that our algorithm did for that organization understood that there is about 85% compliance between open orders and what happens as a fulfillment. And that's what the algorithm will use, right? So there is some wisdom within our algorithm that looks not just take the open orders and respect that, also learn about the open orders impact and correlation and use that. Users, I should say also that planners can always override our algorithm if it makes sense for them, per customer, per item. But the system will know if the data will be provided to do that analysis automatically, and by that, find the insight about open orders and their impact on the short horizon. So that's the reason we have this expected demand, which is different to the focus. So now, as a planner, I'm looking at that, and I find that I think that the expected demand make a lot of sense looking into the open orders, and I want to choose to use my expected demand. So I can only do one click on the match demand. And then what match demand will do, it's going to take the expected demand and with that populate the adjusted forecast. So you can see that the adjusted forecast is exactly like the expected demand. Right? And then I resolve that combination, and you can see that the status became unsynced. I can choose also to do that as excluded, and I'm done as a planner. I should also mention that we have two other ways to resolve a combination. One would be that I can always put a number by myself. So if I didn't like the 11,635, and I think that, for example, it's more like 9K for that combination, I can choose to do that myself as well, right? So we have the ability to do a user override. And then there is also the ability to continue with the forecast that we have. So that's the forecast, but we can choose to redistribute that. What that means. As you can see, the red bar over here represents the current time through the sensing horizon that I'm with. So within the sensing period, we see that there are already 5 weeks that passed in history. What I can do with doing the redistribute forecast, I want to stick to my initial plan, which was 4,307, but I want to redistribute it within the 5 weeks that already passed. So what already was consumed, I want to redistribute the whatever left within the horizon. Not going to make much sense in my example, because if already we are on week 5 within a 25 weeks sensing period, and my demand was already 4,204, and I'm left with only 103 units to be consumed for the next 16 weeks, not making much sense. So you're probably not going to choose that, but redistribute forecast is also a capability that the solution is bringing you. So 3 ways to do simple overrides, either by match demand. That's usually going to be what we're going to try to achieve with demand sensing. Why? Because demand sensing is about taking advantage of the open orders, point of sale, promotions, and on hand in order to utilize a better forecast, which was in initial had a challenge, and this is why it's exceptional and came here. But if we need to do manual override or we want to do redistribute forecast, we have the capabilities. I'm also going to mention that doing either of them will proportionally split the numbers into the details. So all we saw right now was we saw the information on a graph. Graph is great, but sometimes in order to understand the details, I don't want to focus on each one and see the value, even though I can. So we can always swap the graph into a table, and then I'm going to be able to see the breakdown per week into the details and understand how my override was breaking down into the different weeks. So we have that capability as well. We can always zoom in and look at the information per week. As in the top, it's going to be on the aggregate. We can zoom in and look at the information per week breakdown still over here, right? So that was my first use case. Let's go to the second use case. So on the second use case, still within the same item, but at Walmart, we do see the opposite event over here. So we see that our demand was relatively low and just had the jump for a couple of weeks. We see that from a forecast perspective, forecast picked up this recent trend, and then the forecast is bump up the to a high forecast relatively. And then we see that the expected demand is again very low, but it's again respecting the open orders on about 80%, right? So it's about the same story, opposite from what we had before about the forecast, but still, the information we have at hand, I choose to go with my expected demand because expected demand is looking into the open orders where my statistical forecast didn't. So that's the additional information from a sensing perspective that can give me the leverage in order to make better decisions. Okay, let's go into the third use case. So on the third use case, begin with looking at a graph like that, I have a challenge to understand the numbers. Why? Because one of the elements within my graph is on the 10K scale, and then everything else, which is on the scale of 500, looks the same, looks like about the same line. So this is actually a feature I wish I had in Demantra for many years, but we can do over here is I can not just highlight each one of the items on the graph, I can click on it. And by clicking on it, I'm going to make it disappear. I'm going to make it visible back later, but for now, I chose to take on hand out of the equation in order to understand everything else in way more details. But I do keep in mind that the on hand relatively is very high, so the customer has a lot of inventory already from that product. Now, when I'm looking into the point of sale data, you see we do have on this one a point of sale data that many times point of sale is going to be able to tell us a different story than the shipments or orders that we are forecasting based on. And that's why, in general, looking at point of sale, it's very handy. I'm also going to mention that when it comes to point of sale, we're respecting and enabling you to load point of sale data. And I know that that's a challenge because some customers, especially in Demantra, but I also think that that's applicable for demand management cloud customers, they not always have the point of sale data within their planning solution because challenges of harmonizations and some other integration challenges. So not all the information we are looking to get from your demand planning solution. Demand and forecast, we definitely will want to get from your demand planning solutions. But point of sale, as an example, if you want to integrate that from another solution that you have, and that goes for everything else that we are looking to get, no problem to integrate that information from external systems. So you can also look at the demand sensing solution as the place where you can harmonize information like promotion or point of sale that today you might going to have a challenge to load that into your Demantra or Oracle Demand Management Cloud. So looking into the point of sale over here, it tells me one story which is very different than the demand, right? You see, we did a lot of shipments, but from a consumption perspective, the consumption is very low relatively to the level of shipments within that retailer and that item. Now, well, it also aligned with the story that we know that the customer usually will build stock before the holidays on that item. So this is why we did a lot of shipments, but from perspective of consumption is relatively very low. we're going to look at the open orders, and we see that from an open orders perspective, open orders are relatively higher than the point of sale data that we have, but lower than the demand. So you see how much of information becomes handy, how much demand sensing is telling us a story that I'm not sure we're able to look at that story in our demand planning solution. And then this is why the expected demand is taking into consideration our forecast, our point of sale, and our open orders, and it's trying to do the balance between all of those different aspects. And that's my expected demand. It's going to be different than any of those informations because it's taking into consideration my point of sale information, my open orders, my forecast, my demand, my seasonality, and also what happened on that item last year. So it's looking into many different aspects. I'm going to speak more about that. And then in that case, I probably will want to choose to increase my forecast because of everything I just mentioned, and I'm just going to do match demand. Okay. Let me go into the fifth example that I have for us for today. And the fifth example is taking into consideration also promotions. So when I'm looking into this example, you see that the plus indications are for promotions. So I do see that I have promotions, one in the future and one in the past. Our solution is part of the algorithm of generating expected demand. In the case that promotion is going to get loaded, we'll look and understand about the correlation between promotions and the historical demand and understand what's the base and lift impacts of the promotions in the past. I'm going to say that we usually will want to have more than one promotion in the past in order to make a significant learning. But once that information will become handy, our algorithm will go and then learn, not in the level that you might think about that in the Demantra capabilities for trade promotion, but it's going to learn about the straight impact of the promotions on the demand. And then by that, we'll learn if we have promotion in the future, we're going to respect the learning that we did in the past, and that's going to also blend into our algorithm. So you can see over here that the expected demand is doing some different forecast than the one that we got from the statistical, because it has the information about the promotion, and then when we have a promotion, it chooses to bump the forecast. Same like with the open orders, when it comes to the promotions, we're going to be able to give simple understandings to the planner about the correlations we learned about, and if they choose to override that or change that or learn from that, they're going to have that visibility in a very simple, straightforward table that they're going to be able to learn about promotion impacts and correlation to demand per customer or per item or per the mix. And we believe that, especially from our experience in the past, that having that handy to a planners can enable them to do better learning and more useful impacts on their planning and forecasting. One thing to mention about POS that before I'm going to move on the demo today is that we are expecting to get POS data, but our algorithm also looking to use the forecast of the POS data as part of projecting a better sensing forecast, because we think that point of sale is important, as I mentioned earlier. So if you have a POS forecast as well, we're going to expect to get that and load it into the solution. But if you don't, we're going to generate regression forecasting for your point of sale data and project that into the solution as well, both for our algorithm, but I think it becomes very handy for planners also to know what would be the forecast for the point of sale data that they have. So that's high level about the demand sensing planning user interface. We are bringing the exceptions over here. We have the ability to work over combinations. We have the ability to look into them into details, both on the graph and the table. And I showed you a few use cases on how me as a planner, I can make decisions and improve. Let's quickly go into the reconciliation tab. So reconciliation tab will not going to be much different than the one we saw in exceptions. But what it tells me is these are the combinations from the overall that the system decided to automatically reconcile. So we're going to be able to give and that's going to be for the planners to, it's going to be configurable, and you're going to have control over it, straightforward, where you can define rules for the system on what is the thresholds that based on them, you're going to give freedom for our algorithm to reconcile the exceptional combinations automatically, right? So, and then I'm going to be able to come into that reconciliation tab and look into the combinations that automatically reconcile based on the system. I'm going to be able to see what was the value that the system chose to adjust the forecast based on, and then if I feel in control, I can down and I can choose to complete my work. We believe, based on some studies, that about 40% of the combinations that are going to be imported into demand sensing can be automatically reconciled. So that can also save a lot of time from a planner perspective, because I'm going to be able to focus only on the things that matter, and the things that I still have exceptional, but they are not that critical, I can give the system the freedom to reconcile automatically for me. So that's about reconciliation. I think that it's a big plus. It comes as part of the solution. Last thing, and I have to say that me personally, I'm very excited about it. I'm going to explain why. Usually KPIs are coming as part of a solution implementation later in the game. At least from our experience at Analytical Factor, we know how important they are, because if you are not measuring, you are not improving. We pitch that to our customers constantly when it comes to improving quality of statistical forecast, if you will, but not just. And we paid a lot of attention on that when it comes to building that solution. So you can see that the solution comes automatically out of the box with 4 KPIs that I'm sure that we're going to continue to develop in our coming version. So what are the KPIs that we see over here today? The first one would be the heat map. So the heat map is showing me the information per the categories. Remember, we have 4 categories in our demo today, so I can see the information per the categories. And then within every category, we are seeing building blocks of the subcategories. So if I'm looking at the Asian, and let me focus on that for a second. So the Asian consists of 3 subgroups: dumplings, egg rolls, and potato stickers. And then another thing that is building that KPI would be the color coding. Each subcategory is going to get the color based on the bigger arrow of the subcategory between the expected demand and the forecast. The more gap I have, the bigger the challenge I have, and the more attention I'm going to have to give it. So that enabled me as a planner to come and take a look and understand where are the things that matter most. Why? Because when it's red, it means that the gap is bigger than when it's yellow. And then where the real estate is bigger, like on the burritos over here in Mexican, it means that the overall arrow from a mass, from a total demand, is bigger than the second, right? So very easy to understand where I want to put my attention. If I don't have time to cover all the exceptions, and I have certain limits, so me as a planner or as a manager, I can look at a KPI like that and understand the bigger, the size of the challenge, and then where I want to focus my time. The exception counts over here on the bottom give us 3 levels of information. The number one, so within today's demo, I loaded 42 combinations. I have to say that we build a solution in an architecture that will be able to support massive combination. So if you have 1,000 of combination, or 10K combination, or 100K of combination, we build the solution in the right architecture, so performance is not going to be the bottleneck. Because I know that many times, talking to my customers, performance becomes the number one challenge of the day, and not about how can I run more simulations. So the architecture we build it on is the one that we're going to be able to support massive combination load into the solution. So that gives me indication of how many combinations exceptional I have per every time that I load on the planning cycle. The second level will show me how many combinations are per every category, right? So you see, for example, we started with Asian, so I have 17 on Asian. And then per every category, I can see how many were reconciled and unreconciled. So 3 levels of information that I can see on this Sunburst KPI. Let's look at the other 2. So the WMAP over time. So WMAP, if we want to improve, if we want to run improvements within our process, we always want to measure. And if we want to measure, the number one thing to measure will be the WMAP, the weighted error. What we're going to show you over here is two levels of error. One is on your final or statistical forecast, and the other one would be on your final or statistical forecast that is improved by your sensing process. So usually you're going to be able to have your final forecast at the end of at the beginning of the lead time. So if we have a lead time of 2 months, we're going to measure accuracy 2 months prior to what was the forecast that we generated 2 months prior to the months that we are measuring. And then if it's with demand sensing, what is our forecast the week before the month that we are measuring? And then you're going to be able to quantify in very simple way on a weekly basis the processes that you do with your demand sensing, improving your statistical forecast, meaning your demand planning process or not. If yes, continue to do that. If not, you want to question, should you do demand sensing, or maybe you're not doing demand sensing the right way. The last KPI on the bottom is showing us some statistics which I think are important to keep track of what you do with the solution like that. So we're going to be able to see what are the total combinations, exceptions that were loaded per week. From those total combinations, how many were automatically reconciled, and how many overall we did adjustments within the solution, right? And I want to make sure that if I loaded, let's look at week -10. So if 10 weeks ago I loaded 146 overall combinations into the solution, and I see that in total between those that were automatically reconciled and those that I worked on manually, I worked on 124 combinations. So it means that I'm using the solution, that demand sensing is providing some meaningful to me. But if I'm going to see that out of 146, I'm just doing 5 combinations, I want to question, do I really use the solution? So I think that statistics also help you in order to manage the process. So that's high level of the demo. There are more details, but within the time window of 1 hour, I think that is enough high level information, and I'm going to go back into my presentation. Okay, I see that they are excited. Okay. So a bit about some numbers from the industry. The industry speaks about that short-term forecasting, hence demand sensing, can improve your accuracy on the short term by 30 to 40%. It's a big achievement. It's going to make a big impact. Now, that big impact can reduce your inventory while you're going to be able to maintain high-level service level by 10 to 15%. And that's usually the magic that we are looking to get from demand planning, demand forecasting, and S&OP, is about how can we reduce our inventory levels or maintain our inventory levels while we're going to be able to increase our service level. I'm going to say more than that. Especially in challenging times where nothing is predictable, demand sensing makes a bigger impact. Because within the recent times, I'm sure that many customers, at least those that I'm speaking to, everything is unpredictable. And then inventories go higher and service level is going lower. And then demand sensing is all about trying to resolve the challenges. Because demand sensing, as you remember when I started the session today, it's about reacting. And a tool like we just showed you is going to help you to react better in real time, and also going to enable you to identify opportunities that not always demand planning going to be able to leverage, because demand planning is about looking into the mid-long term. So those are the numbers speak for themselves. There is a great opportunity with demand sensing. Now, high level, I wanted to go quickly about best practice. There are 3 best practices of demand sensing utilizations, right? One is about latency reduction, another one about using point of sale information, and the third one about using causal factors like promotions. So if this is a high level diagram of your planning solution today, you see that you have a process that probably going to be the monthly process where you're going to load your shipment data, generate a statistical forecast, get through a S&OP process into a consensus forecast, they're then going to go downstream into production and then also get the approvals from the executives. Now, demand sensing is coming to leverage that, as I said earlier, augmenting your planning process. So one thing to begin with is, why looking at the numbers once a month? Why not doing it twice a month? If you're going to have demand sensing, so do your forecasting for the mid-long term once a month, but do your exception planning twice a month. That's the demand sensing. So you can go push the exceptions into demand sensing every 2 weeks, while the planning within Oracle Demand Management Cloud or Demantra, you do just once a month. Can we support that with our solution? Absolutely. We support weekly to monthly. So you can even have a situation where your planning solution is a monthly system, but within demand sensing, we're going to enable you to work and do the planning on the weekly. Makes more sense when you want to look into point of sale, right? So you can continue to do your planning on a monthly if you have it there, and do the weekly or bi-weekly cycles within demand sensing. So that's one best practice recommendation that we support. The second one is about point of sale data. Take advantage of point of sale data, and as you saw in the demo, we support that as well. Not just that we're going to be able to load and harmonize your point of sales data in conjunction to your demand planning and forecast, we're also going to be able to generate a statistical forecast through our regression models and project that for you as part of the demand sensing solution. So the second best practice that is about using point of sale data is also respected in our solution. The last one is about the promotional information, looking at the impact of promotions or events. So we are doing more than that. It's not just that we are loading promotions and having them in front of the planners when he's looking into the demand sensing planning. We are also utilizing some learning about the past behavior of the promotions, and from that having the ability to project into our algorithm what would be the impact of the promotions, so enabling to get a more or a better forecast on the demand sensing solution. A bit about our algorithm, because people who know me know that I can talk about algorithms for more than few minutes, but really high level. Those are, as you can see in front of you, our algorithm is taking, it's not a statistical forecasting, right? So it's not the Bayesian Markov capabilities, and I have to speak about it, very good capabilities that we have either in Oracle Demand Management Cloud or Demantra. It's different. It's a different blend of rules and capabilities that somebody like Nadav is putting into the wisdom of this solution based on 25 years of expertise. So we are taking into consideration the trend of the last few weeks of your demand, the behavior of your demand last year, seasonality. We are looking, as I mentioned, about point of sale, both for the recent, but also the projection of the point of sale as a forecast. We're looking into open orders, as I mentioned. We're looking into promotions, as I mentioned, and we're also going to look at your on-hand inventory if you have. So we are blending all that and some more into, I think, a very good and interesting expected demand forecast as part of the solution. Almost done, and we're going to go into some questions. Benefits. So high level, the benefits would be that our demand sensing solution enables the planners to take fast actions in real time about the short horizon changes and react better with a lot of information that going to be presented in front of them. So we, as I said, we're going to be able to bring all the relevant information into one simple screen. And you saw the application is very simple, straightforward, using Edge user interface that enables you to do many simple things that are making an impact as a planner, like the graph capabilities, swapping between the graph and the table. And we try to keep it simple, straightforward. So I don't need to learn about many worksheet names in order to do my planning. I have one simple UI with few simple buttons that giving me everything I need in a simple screen, straightforward, and I can make an impact. I then have another screen where I can see my exceptions, and then I can just make an action on them and then everything automatically flashed into a KPI that keep track of all your changes. So everything is constantly also getting measured. You don't have to go and implement them, and if you don't, so you don't have them. You're going to get the full package. And I think it's also important to mention that it's real time, meaning that you're going to be able to come into demand sensing, do some changes, and have them in real time go back into your planning solution, and then see how that resolve your overall S&OP process. Okay. And I'm going to finish with that, and I'm going to say that what I would like you to take away, and I want to divide that into two. I want to talk about demand sensing in general and the solution you saw for today. So the solution you saw for today, I hope that made enough impact. But what I want you to take away is about demand sensing in general. Demand sensing can definitely improve your forecast accuracy in the short horizon. It can increase your customer satisfactions where things are going crazy, like in COVID. You can control your inventory. If you're not going to reduce, you're at least going to be in control. And I think that that's the solution to go about when things are going not as expected. So in disruption times like we are at today, I think that demand sensing in general is not an option, is a must. And if any company that want to utilize and leverage best practice processes, I think that in the next 5 years, everybody will want to do something like that. Shaul, I think I'm done with my slides. If you want to, as much as time permit, to ask questions.
Sure. So let me start with the first one. How will demand sensing work with forecasting quarterly time buckets? In ODMC, will there be smoothing across months?
So it's an interesting. I've been asked so far about monthly. Quarterly, we have. I mean, since we do it for monthly, we're going to be able to do that for quarterly. But I'm going to say more than that. I need to look at the use case. I need to look at the. We need to understand it together with the customer, because taking a quarterly forecast and breaking it into daily, I think I need to visualize it in order to see how it makes sense. From a monthly to weekly, we saw that it makes sense with one customer, and it's something that we recommended. It's also the question would be, what do we want to do with it? I mean, we're just going to take the quarterly demand and forecast and break it into weeks. If we are not loading any additional information like point of sale or promotions or on hand or open orders, that they should be on the weekly or monthly bucket, then I don't see the benefit. But if it's harmonizing the quarterly forecast with some other information that coming on a lower bucket, so absolutely yes. Technically and from a functionality perspective, we support that. I'm more concerned about understanding the full story from a business perspective. So my short answer would be technically yes. Need to learn more about the details in order to give a proper answer.
Okay, the next one is for POS data. Is demand sensing capable of having integrations with other systems?
Absolutely, yes. Again, I'm going to be able to talk more about the integration capabilities. So we support REST calls and some other integration capabilities. We can integrate into any solution in order to bring additional information, both for POS, both for promotions, both for open orders.
Okay, can we have some other data point other than POS or open orders to calculate expected demand?
Absolutely. We are we build a solution where those going to be the most important causal factors, if you will. But like in Demantra or ODMC, if you have additional information that we can blend into our algorithm, we're going to be able to respect that. The only thing would be is the question about any causal factor. Is it really a causal factor? But if there is additional information on a customer by customer basis that can make an impact, we would like to load that in and blend that into the algorithm.
Okay, I think you touched on those, but still, what is the formula to derive the expected demand derived by demand sensing?
So the formula that we do within demand sensing is, and I showed as well, we are taking all the best practice recommended information, which is your historical demand, your statistical or final forecast. And then POS, if you have it, we're going to take it. If you don't have POS forecast, we're going to generate. So that's going to be part of the blend. We're going to look at things like seasonality, trend within the data itself automatically. If you have promotions, we're going to be happy to load that and look at the impacts of promotions. Open orders. Open orders for many of our customers on the short horizons are critical, but then we also, as part of the algorithm, not just going to take the open orders for granted, we're going to do some learnings about the correlation between open orders on demand over time, especially for the short horizon, and then respect that as well. Again, within the time that we have, that's the short answer I have. There is a longer answer.
Okay. And another one, is there any challenge in using demand sensing for horizon between 18 to 26 weeks?
So the short answer is no, but then we need to understand why, right? Again, it depends on what vertical you are at. If you're on FM, fast-moving CPG, I don't know. If you're on pharmaceutical, maybe yes. So it depends on the use case. Can our solution technically support that? Answer is yes. But I don't want just to say a simple yes. We need to look into the use case and see if why should be the reason.
Okay, couple more. Does this solution support only Oracle Demand Management Cloud?
No. We build it in a way that it's built around Oracle Demand Management Cloud in Demantra. Can it integrate into any other demand planning solution? Yes. I mean, there is nothing within our code line that is specifically talks about Oracle. We build it in a way that you're going to give us those streams of data. We're going to know how to perform. We are exporting the information. Any solution any demand planning solution today going to be able to give us that information or somewhat of that information. And any demand planning solution today going to be able to respect and integrate back our forecast override. So I'm going to say it simply, we are agnostic to your demand planning solution.
So just a kind of twist to that, follow up to that question, having Demantra on-prem, can this still be hosted solution outside our network?
Yes. I'm going to, and let me take that. So if a customer has Demantra today and wants and they question themselves, well, should we use that? Because we know that in anything between 12 to 24 months, we're going to move from Demantra into the cloud, and we're not even sure that it's going to be Oracle. My recommendation will be, if you like the solution, go for it. Why? It's going to be very fast integration on top of your Demantra, and within the current situation, I think fast integration and making an impact is important. And then, as I said, it's agnostic. If tomorrow you're going to move to Oracle Demand Management Cloud, we're going to support you. If you're going to move into something else in the cloud, we're still going to support you.
And the last question I have is, how long does it take to implement the solution?
As I said earlier, I expect if a customer comes based on the vanilla configurations that we have today, and as I said earlier, the vanilla supports all the best practice needs. We can integrate that, I would say anything between 4 to 6 weeks, we can have it up in production.
Okay, we're done with all the questions. Thank you everyone for joining our webinar. As Sharon mentioned earlier, please follow us on LinkedIn for upcoming webinars, and looking forward to having discussion. If you have any question about this today's webinar, please reach out to us and we can have a discussion one-on-one.
Thank you.